whenever you have the ability to get your business to where it's lean and mean, then the way that private equity looks at that is they go, oh, I've got money. So if I just need to put more people to it, but the processes are already in place to where we are optimized, then this is easy money. Because all I got to do is go put more money into it and then it'll produce more ROI, right? That's their mindset.
Okay, so we're back with another special episode of the Mission Control Podcast. It's always special, folks. Always special, but especially special when we got Connor Rodich in the building. So we doubled down. We shot the content you saw last week, but we want to follow up with the M&A and the PE conversations, right? So it relates to, selling my business. And, in one of our previous episodes, and if you haven't checked it out, click the link above. You can go preface this conversation with that. But we want to talk about, if I'm selling my business, there's a lot of different ways that when we start that conversation, we move through it and someone gives me an offer, it's listed, we get an offer, it's sold. That can look a lot of different ways, right? Do I peace out, as you said in our last conversation, and they just give my money and I run? Do I have to stay there for a certain amount of time? What am I entitled to? I guess the first question I would have about that is, if I'm going to sell my company, what type of arrangement should I be looking for? Is there a standard for that, or is it fluid?
That's a good question. Yeah, I think that it always starts on what you're looking to accomplish. And I always say that to everybody, if you're not clear in what you're trying to go after, what you're trying to get, or if you're more so coming to the market going, I don't really know what's available to me. I don't even know what I could sell my company for. I don't know what the valuation, I don't know the multiples, all the things you hear, then that's a good place to start in terms of you need to get your education, and not that you need to go to the broker to get your education. You need to hear from others, talk around folks in the industry, the folks that have gone through transactions, because before we get to that, not all transactions, when you're yeah, do this and go through due diligence and then get to the closing table and all the things and we're all rich, rarely does it work out where it's just so incredibly beautiful. It's a process, right? So in terms of getting from the listing and all the things that have to happen before you list even, right, to where you're actually money's in the bank, the wire hit, and life's great, right? And being able to do all the things you want to do for yourself and your family and your team and all the things that are beautiful about it, right? I'm a big proponent of that. But yeah, I think when you're talking about the details of I guess the structure of funds and the way that the private equity platform operates, whenever you're in a position where you're interested, you've done your research, you're at a place where you've got the education that you need to go out there. I think that there's no standard right way. It's more about what project and what strategy are you interested in. So we talked about that on that podcast you referenced, where we briefly spoke about the strategy. So the most private equity platforms, the ones that are reputable, the ones that are worth getting involved with, are in very well financially backed, $1 billion plus funds, right? Those are all after the same thing. And we talked about that on the other podcast as well, where it was they're all trying to execute a ROI to their investor because they have a high net worth investor and they have a responsibility to return that investment, right? So, and they also, as a firm and as a platform entity, the M&A, the private equity firm itself has to be able to get a return because they're in business for themselves too. So all of that to say, it's really more about the strategy than it is what they're trying to do with it. They're trying to sell it. That's what they want to do. They want to get a bunch of companies together. They want to establish a platform company, acquire different businesses, be able to package it together, get a nice solid, there's a lot of things that go into the way that they pump money into marketing and do all these different things, and then kind of, gut the organization a bit, get it really, really looking on paper extremely exceptional, and then they go and flip it, right? That's how they do business. That's how it historically has been done, right? But the strategy in which they go about that is what's different. And that's what we're talking about. So when you're talking about the strategy and what you're looking for, it's really up to you. If you're hey, I want to stick around in my business, I'm not burnt out, I just would love to see what my options are. Great. Look for a company that's interested in that. Look for a private equity platform that's interested in that. If you're interested in the, hey, I want to be able to walk in 90 days and peace out, like you were saying, cool. Take an interest in that, figure out what those organizations look like and see if you can find someone that aligns with you that way. A lot of it's value based. A lot of it is like when you're meeting the folks, how do you jive? Do you feel like it would be a good fit, a good culture fit? They're all salespeople. So like whenever you're getting reached out by private equity platforms themselves or brokers, like they're all in the game to make money. Like that's they're salespeople, right? But there's a little bit of the element of like, you're going to have to figure out the authentic side of things, which is like, are they really who they say they are? Do they actually know what the business is about and things like that? And if those things matter to you, which they should, at least most people they do, then you have to base your decisions off of that. But the strategy itself is a multitude of different, it can come in a multitude of different capacities. And we can talk about that a little bit, where it's like, hey, if you want all money up front, get out, or you want to stay around, you want to get, roll back into the entity, the holding co entity. And we can talk about the details of that in a second. But yeah, that's all like how you would go about making your decision and making sure that you're pairing up with the right entity and something that makes sense for you,
Why do deals die?
Deals die typically because of the lack of preparation, and because they don't really have the business put together well pre-listing. Due diligence sniffs out everything. And if it doesn't, then you're with the wrong due diligence team, because they should be able to figure out every skeleton that is in that closet. So most times deals fall through because owners are, the heartbeat of the business. They don't have they maybe position the business for sale with the anticipation of like the entire staff staying along, and, owner's going to have to be replaced, and he hasn't been paying himself a salary, and he's been living off of rebates and kind of been running this whole like gamut of, just kind of shooting from the hip, I guess is maybe the best way to put it. And like, hey, we do business and we do it at a high level in terms of it looks great on paper, but we don't really have an operating system in place. We don't have our finances together. It's just kind of all put together in a way that works for it to be profitable, but not for it to be acquirable. That makes sense what I'm saying, right? So that's a big thing. That's why a lot of deals fall through is just prep, man. So. And then again, it comes back to the owner piece, or the financials piece, or the operating system piece, or there's just like really key pieces. It's like if it's missing it's going to be hard to acquire it, right? But yeah, I mean, by and large, it's when I say prep, what I mean by that is like making sure that everything is ready and your business is ready. Your business is ready to list and to know that it's something that's transactable. And a lot of companies aren't transactable. Like most of them aren't.
That makes sense. You talk about multiples when selling a company. What are some things that a roofing company can do? What are the most important contributing factors to increasing their multiple at sale?
Great question. I can't give you all the sauce, but I can give you the big nuggets. Establish leadership team in place. If the owner is the heartbeat and is the owner operator, it's going to be really hard to demand the multiple you want, especially if you're trying to do any sort of walk or supervisory consultant type of role in the business. So that's like one of the big ones, right? To demand a good multiple is having a really, really rock solid team. In a lot of ways that will construct those deals rather, when it is coming up to a point of transaction, is making sure that those people are vested in the company to earn a return on how it performs from there on out, right? So, but that's one big thing. Another big thing is some of the stuff we talked about in another podcast, which was about the operational efficiency of the business. And so what that is not like, we got, the most beautiful CRM or the most beautiful estimating tool or whatever the case is. Most of the time, what we're talking about is just being operationally optimized with the people that we have, right? Because when you go into a business and you're trying to figure out like where to get better, your people most of the time, I have to say that with like an asterisk, but most of the time, your people are your most expensive component to your business, because if you're trying to grow with multiple markets, or you're trying to do, a lot of like bigger company things, a lot of them get really overhead heavy with their people, right? And so whenever you have the ability to get your business to where it's lean and mean, then the way that private equity looks at that is they go, oh, I've got money. So if I just need to put more people to it, but the processes are already in place to where we are optimized, then this is easy money, because all I got to do is go put more money into it, and then it'll produce more ROI, right? That's their mindset. So those are two big things. I would say the other third thing, and this is kind of the one that it's hard for me to go into a lot of detail because there's stuff that we do just, not that, it's I would say like proprietary, but it's something that like I take a lot of pride in, is the way we prepare our financials and the way that we're able to position. This is all on the prep side of things, right? But like, tell the story, because that's one of the big things that you don't see in a lot of transactions. They just get the like Harvard due diligence guy, whatever, they put the files together, or they get someone to the M&A advisory firm or a broker that just puts the files together, and then they don't understand the business. They don't understand how to really sell the story, right? Or sell the potential buyer on what this entire financial story looks like. They just kind of put the facts on paper and that's it, right? But if you can like look through the lens, I'm just going to give you an example. Like one that we've been working on, it's like huge backlog. Kind of hard to really explain that, because from an accounting perspective, yeah, you want to know sales and you want to know like what's your kind of what's waiting to come through, but there's not a story that's told through that, right? It's just accounting. It's like, what have we earned? What have we earned in accrual? And what's our cash basis of accounting, right? But the story you have to be able to tell truthfully to be able to maximize, not only to get all your add backs in there and make sure that obviously all of the owner discretionary items are added back into the final purchase and considered, which is the negotiation involved in that whenever you do get a buyer, because they want to negotiate on those things. And that's another thing we can help with a lot, because we can go, no, owner discretionary, excuse me, and here's why, right? And really explain that story with an understanding of the business, right? Whereas others don't always have that. But the biggest thing is being able to tell the story of that backlog, of that sale pipeline, of the stuff that's like, hey, it's been approved, we're there, we've collected a deposit on it, or whatever the case is, but we haven't really been able to like curate a story that would really sell someone on like, oh my gosh, I'm getting a steal of a deal. Because that's how you get the bigger multiples, is like, oh my gosh, I'm optimized, I've got a leadership team, I've got documented processes, I've got a CRM that's working, and I have a flooded, like, which again, this is not showing up on the financials, but I've got an incredible backlog that I'm going to work off of, and I've got $5 million in the right for my accounts receivable payable equation. Like, holy shit, let me throw the farm at this, right? And this guy's, and that's kind of what I guess I'm getting at with all of this, is all of them are equally important, or not equally important, but they're all pieces of importance. But when you get to the point where you have that whole picture put together and you're actually prepared, it is a position of, you want me, come get me, versus you being out there going, please buy me. Exactly. Yeah. Exactly. And so whenever it's,
desperation's never a good look in negotiations.
And then it's not even about desperation, because some guys, they're like, they do have a good business, but it could look so much better, and it could demand so much more value, and it could look so, and not just like put a pig, lipstick on a pig. That's not what we're doing here. I'm saying like, but actually preparing your business, like actually like getting in the inner workings, making sure your GM is like ready to take that step, and making sure that you have adequate sales leadership and production leadership and billing extraordinaire. And like, you got to have those pieces. And if you have all those pieces, I'm telling you, brother, they'll write the check, because that's not the problem. The problem is you don't have all that other stuff done.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Last question. If I'm listing my company for sale, should I have a conversation with my current employees before I do so? My own opinion about this is not right or wrong, but I would say that I'm of the mindset of making sure that at least your company leadership knows what's going on, right? I personally don't think a top-down approach of giving that information is a bad thing. I think where people mess up is the delivery of it, because we have really, really great communicators in this space, as you know. Just people don't communicate well. I was saying that obviously in a joking manner. Like, most people, they just don't know how to communicate well. They don't know how to give all the details. They don't know how to do all that. So if you don't do that, and you're like, hey, I'm selling my company. Well, that's a lot of questions to have, yeah.
Right? But if they go through the process of like explaining to the leadership team, explaining the benefits, right? That's one of the big things too. And I can't stand, I've seen some deals transact on the book that are like, owner takes all the money and runs, basically, maybe throws a bone to his guy that's been there for a minute, right? But like, that's not the way to corral it. Like, the way to actually like sell the right way, if you're going to participate in that, is to get everybody involved. Like, get it to where it becomes like an effort to do that from a like the buy-in of the long term, right? Because you can't have anything short term, you can't inform your team and then expect everybody to not be thinking about like you have to make it a long-term vision, is what I'm saying, right?
You got to feel secure in your position.
Correct. You have to be secure. So and it should be that way. It shouldn't be, again, it's not a putting lipstick on a pig or like being, a facade with that. Like, you should really care about the future of your company. You spent time building your company. You took pride in the way you built your brand. Ascend helped you, right? A little plug there for you. But no, I mean, like, those things, like, if you don't, care, then I guess that's one thing, right? Yeah. I would say at that point, don't tell your team. And there's guys that
we ask you, who raised you? Yeah.
Yeah. But I mean, then there's guys that do that and they don't tell their team. And I would say that's probably the right decision if you don't care, right? Yeah. But if you do care and you really want to make sure your brand and your legacy lives on, I think telling your team is a great thing to do, as long as you explain it to them correctly, as long as you explain the intentions and you explain, like, I'm just a man of transparency. That's just how I've always been. So like, if that's what I'm doing, I'm going to let them know top down, right? I'm going to let them know. I'm going to start with my leadership team, make sure it's understood correctly, work the way down, have probably an all hands or town hall type meeting with my entire company, explain what's happening. But then all of that to tie into like share capabilities, right? I would love and that would be one of my things, is I would not get involved in a strategy, a private equity strategy or a platform company that is just wanting to give you all cash and run. Like, I wouldn't do that, because I would want my team to be able to have some of the rollback of my, like, if I sold my company for 10 million and I want 9 in cash and $1 million put back into the holding co of what the private equity platform, entity is, then I would do that. And I would make sure that those share distributions are going out to my team, because I want them to be able to benefit from it too, right? That's like a huge component of this, is not just getting me good. Like, the owner will be good, but it's about making sure that your legacy lives on, your brand lives on, your people are happy, your culture is great. And when you ask that question, I think that the answer just depends on what that circumstance is. But in my opinion, you shouldn't do a deal unless it's going to benefit your team.
You heard it here first, folks. So I appreciate that, because I've had a lot of conversations with people, and these are the type of questions that I get, and I'm the furthest thing from qualified to speak on it. So I'm always like, I don't know, but I could ask somebody. So here I am, delivering once again. What other questions you got? Drop them in the comments below. Connor, thanks, dude. I appreciate you shedding some light on an otherwise murky situation. I think for most people, they just don't know. And
ask questions. I think, like, if anything, can
they hit your DMs if they have questions?
Sure, absolutely. Reach out to me. Connor Rodich on Facebook, exec.partners, the website for the firm. I mean, at the end of the day, like, and I'm not the only guy that has the answers. Like, I'm not saying my answers are even right answers, right? I always tell people that I'm like, hey, I'm going to give you a really, really educated answer, but like, you might have a different what's right for you answer. And
sure.
But I think that, to wrap this up in a nice, pretty bow, just be a student to it. Like, don't go in and get infatuated with like, oh, I'm getting so many calls every day, or I got all these private equity broker, whatever, like all these different things. Yes, it is part of our industry right now. It is happening. Like, so if you are getting calls every single day, so is everybody else, I can promise you. And what they're looking for is for, that they're doing their job. They're cold calling on businesses to try to figure out if they can get them entertaining a sell, to get them to transact, because that's how they make their money. And it's all good. It's all, in my opinion, there's bad and good to everything. Sure. Social media, this, that, whatever, right? And so the bad with this is that there's going to be transactions that are done, roll-ups that are completed, and private equity platforms established that are going to fail. And that's just the reality. Now, not fail in terms of like going to go belly up. There have been some that have done that, right? But most of them, I would say, not most of them. That's probably an incorrect way of saying that. I would say a substantial amount of them will probably not do particularly well. And what I mean by that is they're going to get in, they're going to affect culture, they're going to cause some problems, but because they're focused on their investor, they're focused on them. At that point, they own it, right? And so they're calling the shots. And you might have a seat at the table, you might have an equity stake in it, But, that's big. And so, yeah, I think the bow on it is just do your research. Make sure you know what you're looking at. Make sure you're asking questions. Make sure you're connecting with people. It doesn't have to just be me, just anybody that has experience in it. There's plenty of guys that have already transacted and can network with. And some of them have horror stories and some of them have the nice, pretty, like, oh my gosh, I sold my company for, life-changing amounts of money and generational wealth. And but I think even the ones that do that, there's sacrifices made. They either ran to the finish line to make it happen and they were committed to it. And there's a lot of bygones and things that happen in the process. But at the end of the day, it's never going to be perfect, but the idea is that it's good for everybody. That's my philosophy of it. If it's good for my people, it's good for me, it's good for my family, it's good for my partners, it's good for my leadership team, it's good for the broker or if you're going direct to private equity, whatever, it should be good for everybody. Right. But it should be ultimately good for your customer too. Right. It should be good. The platform itself should serve the customer well and do all those things. So yeah, so that's the last spiel I got for that is just do your research and feel like you're, don't dive in and get, married to somebody awful quick. Cause they're out there. They're like vultures right now. Right. They're just going I kind of like marketing companies a little bit.
Hey, I'm just Connor Rodich on Facebook, Exec Partners. Dude, thanks for coming in and helping out. And I look back to having you soon. You're coming back to Buffalo at some point.
One of these days, Niagara, bro,
All right, homie.
See.
And we gone.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0.